today's episode is us picking up where we left off in the last episode. As I mentioned to you folks then, we were deep within the hole. Staking at that point, I was probably into the game for 5 or 6k. Already not looking too good and looking to battle back. At this point, the game started getting a little bit better. We just got a 6th player, and by the end of the episode, we're playing in a full ring game. The action is there to be had. The game gets a little bit better. Anyways, before we get into today's episode, I want to let you guys know to join Club GG. The Splash Squads. It's the only place you guys can see us. I've been literally losing every single session I play on there. So if you guys want to catch some of the punts from myself, Ethan, Mariano, johnnievibes, and Lynn, make sure to click the link at the top of the description. They'll get you guys all squared away. It's a Telegram link, super easy to follow, super easy to get loaded up. And again, I appreciate you guys always for coming through. Secondly, if you guys haven't had your chance already, you guys got to grab one of these. The hoodies are on a different planet. And like I said, there's very few of these left. We're trying to get rid of the last couple of sizes, if I'm not mistaken. So if you guys haven't had the chance to already, we did restock just a very slight few. There is still a chance that you win a golden ticket. So if you haven't gotten your chance to get a jacket already, make sure to grab it because you'll be entered into a raffle to win a WSOP full expense package paid experience to come hang out with me and the boys. Great time. There's gonna be 5 total winners. Like I said, there's 3 that are just relevant to the jackets and 2 for video submissions. To be quite honest, we haven't had as many video submissions as I'd like, so please send over your video submissions to why I should pick you guys to join us at the WSOP 2022. Again, the link to all that information is down below. There's a video that describes that. More importantly, there's an email again that you'll be sending over that video to. Anyways, let's hop into today's video. That's enough of me talking. Hopefully you guys enjoy these intros, and I'll see you guys soon. Just like that, we're hopping into this first hand. Like I mentioned, I'm looking to finally bounce back after what's been a pretty rough session, to say the very least. Anyways, we're playing 5-hand at this point, as there is a person that just left the table. I'm making $60 here from the button when I looked on an ace-9 offsuit. And the gentleman in the big blind decides to 3-bet to $250 from out of position. The straddler gets out of the way, and it gets over to me. Not a good hand, to be quite honest. And if I'm going to be playing it, 4-betting it is going to be the best thing to do. But I don't. Alas, we find ourselves here just making a flat call that's not very profitable. But that is what I do, so I've got to show it to you. So after all that, we are off to a flop, and we are going to see ace 3 deuce rainbow. The gentleman decides to continue the story as he bets $160. He is the only professional at the table sitting here at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and make just a flat call. The turn comes a 4. When he checks it to me, my kicker is just not good enough to go for value at this point, and it's just nearly impossible, I think, for me to be going for 3 streets of value or even 2 streets of value in this hand. So I'm going to go ahead and check here and keep my my ranges a little wider than usual, and we're off to a river. The river comes a pretty interesting card as it pairs the board. It's a deuce. It doesn't do much for us, but when he checks, I think it would just be beyond me to miss out value here. I think I just got to be going for value when he checks it to me for the second time. So I do just that. $365. I'm targeting hands specifically like queens, kings, and jacks. After a pretty quick little tank that was about 3 seconds long, my opponent decides to make the call. He flips over ace queen, so value owned ourselves there, and just like that, we find ourselves into the game for $8,600 and just cannot find a way out of the mess that we've created today. If there's any way to get out of a mess, suited connectors are just the cure to any bad hangover. Just kidding. They're the cure to being stuck, you know what I'm saying? Getting out of the mix. The straddle is on. And we look down at 7-6 of hearts. The straddle is pretty much mandatory if I haven't mentioned it to this point. I'm going to go ahead and raise here to $60. It gets over to the person in middle position who decides to make it $200. Folds all the way to the straddle who has $165 and he decides to jam. Considering that this does not reopen the betting and I'm now getting an even better price to make the call, I'm going to go ahead and call even though I am out of position with my suited connectors, as I feel like post-flop I can definitely maneuver and get my way to finagle out a pretty decent little pot for us. We are 3 ways to the flop that comes 10, 10, 8 with 1 heart. It is a rainbow board texture. I decide to check and my opponent pretty quickly decides to bet $200. I do pause here for a moment to think if this is the time where I just go for it. I jam all in. But in reality, I feel like it's hard to have a really strong range here. I feel like I can definitely jam a lot of really interesting turn cards that don't contain most face cards. So when that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and just make the flag call. Like I said, it's hard for me to rep a 10 here. I would be trying to go for max value maybe on the turn of the river, so I just make the call. The turn comes a pretty great card as it comes a 6 of clubs. I do make bottom pair here, which is not too relevant, but definitely hands that I'm going to be having here like 9-7 suited. I'm going to have those as frequently as I'm going to have a hand like 6-7 suited, or a hand like ace-10 suited, or a hand like jack-10 suited. So with this turn card, although it does give me bottom pair, that's not really what the merits of my hand is. I'm playing my range here, so I decide to jam in $1,500. That's right, going for the magical over bets. It's the only price of poker that makes sense at this point. I can be repping all of the best hands credibly. My opponent pretty quickly decides to make the fold. Let's go. Now we've locked up a pretty decent little side pot of about $450 or $475. We're playing for the main pot now, which is again very juicy still. The river comes an absolute brick as it comes to 5 of clubs. That doesn't change anything really here. I show my 6-7 and my opponent nods and lets me know that it is good. Music to my ears. Finally, a hand coming our way. Really happy with the way we played the hand. I don't think my opponent had me beat just by his reaction when I showed my hand. The opponent by meaning the person in the cutoff. But I'm pretty sure that I could have had him easily be folding jacks and queens there almost every time. So pretty happy with my play there. Again, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back when I feel like I did okay, and I'm going to be my worst critic when I feel like I played poorly. So all things considered, finally heading in the right direction. Let's go. In this next hand, the cutoff decides to raise to $65. The small blind calls, and I'm in the straddle. When I look down at queen jack offsuit, not a great hand again, but the reason I say that is that a hand like this is going to correlate pretty often with the calling ranges from the small blind, as well as the opening ranges from the middle position or the cutoff player. Anyways, again, this hand is just too strong to fold, so I decide to make the call considering this is a pretty decent price we're getting to call, and we're off to a flop. The flop comes 10-5 deuce rainbow. It checks over to the initial raiser, who surprisingly decides to check this back. I'd be expecting this pro to be c-betting pretty often here, but you know, this is better for me. Let's see if we can catch up. The turn comes a 9 of clubs. The small blind decides to leave here for $90, and I'm thinking some very nefarious things. I'm thinking that, look, the only way I win this hand is if we bink a massive river, and if that's the case, it's about time we start building the pot, and if not, we can get him out of the way early. I decide to raise to $325 to get this predator off my tracks. It is about time that we fight back. The unfortunate thing is not that the initial raiser, because he gets out of the way, he folds, but the small blind decides to make the call. We're hoping for a pretty magical river, or I guess some more ammunition to bomb away. The river comes a 4 of clubs. When my opponent decides to check, to me this means get ready, because it's about time we start bombing away. I decide to bet $700, and our opponent folds. Another massive pot coming in our direction. Oh my word, I can't believe it. We show the bluff. The bluff is good. Surprisingly, our opponent actually told us he had the exact same hand. He also had queen jack, so I guess that's cool, but I just can't imagine that he would have been able to call off with just one pair. Anyways, super happy with that play there. Finally playing some decent poker and really capitalizing on some really sick spots. In the following hand, we're playing against one of these same opponents from the 6-7 suited hand, as he decides to raise here to $65. By the way, he decided to subscribe, and he shared some really sweet things. You know, he said he hopes I prosper. I don't think he won too many chips off me, but man, I wish I lost some more chips to you. You were pretty nice. So anyways, we look down at queen 9 offsuit here from the big blind. Gonna go ahead and be defending this hand. Again, a little bit on the wider side, but I don't really mind considering we're playing against mostly recreational players in this hand. The straddle comes along as well, and we're off 3 ways to a flop that comes 9-4-4 rainbow. I decide to check here, flopping top pair, continuing to plain flow, and the initial raiser decides to c-bet for $125. He's going about 2/3 pot size bet, a little bit on the bigger size, but with that being considered, since it is a rainbow board and fairly dry, he most likely has a pretty decent holding, and I don't really just want to overplay my hand and raise, so I just make the call and we're off to a turn. The turn card comes the absolute gin card as it comes another 9, and the action actually checks through here, and I hate it. I just hate it so much. When the board pairs like that, I'm going to have a ton of really random hands trying to get his ace highs to fold. So I wish I just led here. It just protects me for when I have bluffs. Anyways, I just decided to check through and we're off to a river, which comes a pretty interesting card as it comes a deuce. And we know one thing that Norman, Chad, and Lon McCarran have taught us for a very long time, and that is deuce has never changed anything ever. So when I decide to lead out here, I want to bet a pretty polar sizing. I need to bet a size that's massive to get him to really think about all of his holdings and what to do with it. I bet $450 and my opponent quickly decides to fold. So unlucky for us there that we can extract any more value, but can't be complaining. We're finally hitting some cards here. It's been an entire session of missing, so man, there's not a word to describe how happy I am to finally be hitting some hands. If it wasn't enough that we're finally hitting hands, we're picking up monsters. Under the straddle, we look down at Big Slick. Ace King offsuit, prime position to finally build a stack here. I decide to raise to $60. It folds back over to our friend that we mentioned in the last hand, and he decides from the button that $60 just is not a sufficient amount of money to be playing this hand. He makes it $265 to go. When it gets folded over to me, there's just no way, Jose, that I'm just going to be calling here. Who do you think this guy is, huh? As I get a lot of comments saying that, hey man, you play Ace King a little too aggressive. And yes, it is true, but I will die on the sword if I have to. This is calling for a 4-bet. $830 to go. It is about time that we get our stacks here into the middle. We're both playing around 150 to 200 big blinds deep. It is a massive, massive hand, and this is a lot of big blinds behind. All of that being considered, I can't lose the simple fact that my goal is to extract as many chips as possible, and right now we are set up to do just that. My opponent goes deep, deep, deep into the tank. This man could be at the very bottom of the ocean floor at this point. Time is ticking by, and he decides to make a big fold. Doesn't ever let us know what he has, but cannot complain to win over $300 pre-flop with an unpaired hand. This next hand is really fun because we can actually get a little bit of the table talk. And you know, that's probably the coolest part about playing live poker is those table dynamics, those live table dynamics. We look down at King Queen offsuit and we decide to raise to $60 here from the middle position. The button was a friend of the vlog actually. His name is Edgar. Shout out to Edgar. As well as the small blind decide to make the call, and we're off to a flop. The flop comes Queen Jack 7 Rainbow. Checks over to me. I decide to c-bet for $125. Gonna be say betting my entire range here as this is a very juicy and delicious board texture for my range. Only Edgar decides to make the call, who is the button player. The small blind gets out of the way and we are off to a turn card, which comes a brick, the deuce. As the action starts here on me, I decide to bet $350, going a little larger. I'm targeting hands like Queen 10, Queen 9, and Queen 8. These are definitely cards that can be in Edgar's range. So my goal is to extract the maximum value here. And when he pretty quickly decides to make the call, everything seems to be setting in the right direction. As we go to a river card, which is an absolute break, changes nothing to the board texture. No straight draws gets there, no flushes get there. And if that's the case, it's time for me to go for some value, but a very small value bet of $250. As you guys can hear a little bit, Edgar is asking what we think we have, what he thinks we have.
He's also in the video.
I think you have a queen. Which queen though? That's the only question.
That's the only question. This is the only time you did it so small.
I hope I'm not valuing myself again. I have king queen. What I think you have is inferior to me. I think you have a weak queen. I show the king queen and it is good, as you guys can see there. And just like that, we are sitting on about a $4,000 chip starting stack. A $4,000 stack now after a really, really humbling session. We finally seem to be heading in the right direction. If you folks are enjoying today's episode, and only if you folks are enjoying it, please make sure to smash the like button down below. You guys don't even understand how far that goes into helping us get into the algorithm, as we have fallen out of YouTube's favor. Anyways, I appreciate you guys all dearly for continuing to support our channel, continuing to help us grow and prosper in the year of 2022. This is very early on and we're still finding a ton of success, and I grant that all to you lovely folks. Anyways, if you guys have the chance, make sure to subscribe, like, drop a comment down below letting me if you guys missed the heart rate monitor, and more importantly, turn on the notification bell if you haven't already. Let's go over these last couple hands because they are even more incredible than everything you guys have seen to this point, is what I was trying to say before I was rudely interrupted by myself. Here I am once again under the straddle as we look down at Queen 9 of diamonds. I decide to raise it here to $60. The button decides to call and we're off heads up to the flop, which comes King Queen 10 with 2 clubs. Not an outstanding flop for my exact holding, as even if we hit our gut shot, any ace makes it better straight. So this is one of those weird instances where like I could see bet and there is hands that I can get called by that are worse, but I just don't really know how to play this hand. And I'm just being totally honest. I'm just not sure the perfect way to play this hand at all. So I decide to check because that seems a little better than betting. And my opponent decides to bet $90. I pretty quickly decide to make the call, as this is exactly what we were trying to do, which is kind of keep the pot reasonably small, not bloat it up too much. And the turn comes a king. A pretty decent card because I think it's less likely for my opponent to have a king, but it doesn't do a whole lot for my exact hand, I guess, besides making my 9 a 10 kicker, I guess. So I decide to check once again, and my opponent quickly checks back. We are off to a river, and once again, another brick river as it comes a deuce. Like Norman Chad says, a deuce has never changed anything. I decide to check, and my opponent bets $250. This puts me really in a blender, in a bind. I just don't know what the hell my opponent can have for him to value bet this river. Can he value bet Queen Jack? Like, it's thin, and I'm considering calling with worse, so it would be a decent value bet, a thin value bet. But besides like trip kings and I guess a really slow played like 10s or something, I just don't know what the hell to do. To be quite honest, I don't know what the hell to do. And when that's the case, my curiosity always gets the better of me. So I decide to make the hero call. And I'm going to have to sue Norman Chad because the deuce changed a whole lot as my opponent shows pocket deuces. Gosh darn it. Norman Chad, you lied to me. This very last hand occurs off camera because this session was so long that my phone had died. But I still have the notes, and it's really important to go over because it's a massive pot, and I think you should know about it. I'm on the button with Queen 8 of clubs, and we're playing 5 or 6 hand at this point. I'm going to go ahead and raise here to $80. Only the straddle decides to make the call, and we're off to a flop. The flop comes 9-6-5. There's 2 diamonds and a club out there. We flop a gut shot, an over, as well as a backdoor flush draw. When my opponent decides to check it over to me, I decide this is a great board texture to go for a c-bet. My button range is a little wider, so a c-bet here is a little more reasonable, but I actually don't mind a check back in this instance quite often as well. Either way, I'm going to be okay with whatever I end up doing, but I decide to c-bet here. I actually down bet to $65, again, just keeping my range a little wider than usual. And to our surprise, the opponent decides to raise to $200. I don't know exactly what he's repping here, besides maybe a flopped straight or something. But in all honesty, not a ton of value hands are going to be raising this flop texture. If he has any set, this is a reasonably juicy board texture, but in reality, it's hard for me to have a ton of hands to continue with that are going to be behind him. So with all that being said, I decide to just flat call as we have a ton of equity in the hand in all reality, unless we're against a flop straight. But we do make the call and we're off to a turn card. The turn card is literally exactly what the doctor ordered. As the turn comes a 10 of clubs. Now we have a flush draw, a double gutter, an over, and I think that's it. We have a ton of outs. And where my opponent decides to bet $375, there's only one way to play this hand, in my opinion. We've got the best turn card we could ever ask for, and it's about time we put our foot to the floor. The gas is going to be officially engaged. I decide to jam for 1,500 chips total, $1,500. My opponent goes deep into the tank, and he's going to join our friend from the last couple hands, as he's going to be meeting him down at the bottom of the sea. Maybe he sees a little mermaid or something, but my opponent decides to inevitably make the call, and now we have a massive pot. All of my chips are in the middle, $8,600 into this game, and I've got the last bit of my last buy-in in here. Looking to improve. We asked the gentleman how many times he wants to run it. He says that 1 time is enough. The river comes, a 3 of spades. We do not improve after the 1,000,000 outs we have, and my opponent shows ace 7 of diamonds. So ace high is going to scoop this massive pot. We were sharing equity, I guess, as he picked a very good hand to raise the flop with, especially was not considering that because he was a recreational player, but tip off my hat to him. He outplayed me in this one, and we just couldn't improve on the river, but I really love my jam on the turn. I cannot beat myself up for it. If I'm going to play the hand, that's the way to play it, and if he didn't have exactly the nut flush draw, I think he folds. I think king 10 or king queen of diamonds, he folds. And even then, I think I like a fold with his exact 10 anyways, but it is what it is. We're going to live to fight another day, and just goes to show you that even when you play pretty decent, which I feel like this video, from the part 1 and part 2, I played really lights out in this episode, and things just didn't fall in my favor, and that's just going to be okay sometimes. But yeah, I really feel like I played well today, and you know, maybe next time we're going to get him. Alrighty, and just like that, we are out. Yes, not feeling awesome about it. Maybe I sound like an asshole, but I don't hate many of the plays today. A lot of stuff just did not like pan out. Like 10 pocket pairs, none of them sets. Flop jacks, overpair, massive like 6K plus pot, lose to flop top 2 pair. Just like a lot of run bad, to be quite honest. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's stuff that could have been played better, but like specifically like that last hand is just a great example of when I turn a ton of equity and I make the right thing. The right play is to jam there, and we just get called off by ace high with the nut flush draw, and he misses and I miss too. So it only makes sense that we start off with the new year just down heaps. Book a massive loss into the game for $8,600 and out for $0. But yeah, definitely going to be going into the lab again and trying to figure everything out. Like I said, I don't think I could play many things very different. Ton of hands. I hope you guys enjoyed the fact that we ended up breaking up into 2 parts. There was just way too many hands to cover today in this session to kind of, I think, wrap it into one. You guys, obviously, I think a part of like my thing is that I try to go into a little more detail than most, at least as far as like what's going on in my head at the time. Because in my notes, I go pretty deep when I'm writing down the notes, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, player details, stuff like that. So it's a little hard to have this many hands and put it all into one episode. But here we are, back into the car. We are starving, haven't had breakfast yet. So, you know, not a big deal. You know, maybe I'm going to go broke with the fact that crypto's going so low, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, can't complain too much. Today is what it is. I'll be back soon. You know, like I said, every Wednesday and Saturday, you guys can expect an upload. Appreciate the kind words and everything that you guys have been doing for the channel so far. But until next time, I love you guys all dearly. Enjoy yourself. Stay happy, stay healthy, and more importantly, stay blessed. And we're good at the tables. Deuces, y'all.